of the Arduino Explorer's curriculum. Today we're going to go over some programming. So programming is basically when you give a computer a certain set of instructions in a language that it can understand, and this language has, like, just like English and like Spanish and other languages, it has rules and grammar, and this language we'll be using is Arduino C. So we're going to write some code and also upload it to the Arduino today. So just like any language, Arduino C also has some like basic grammar. For example, most lines have like end with a semicolon, and unless it has a bracket in the line, and the brackets mean like there's a beginning of a block of code, and the open one means that it's a beginning of a block of code, and a closed one means it's the end. Then, for example, it's like void setup, open bracket, some line of code with a semicolon at the end, and then close bracket. Some basic programming terms. A variable. It's a container which stores information, which also has like a name and type, and this can hold like a number, a letter, or a word, depending on what type it was. There's also something called a function, which is a block of code, like I showed before. Like it has parentheses, or it has a name with parentheses and then the brackets. This has like a specific set of instructions inside. So let's start a new sketch. So you'd go to File and New Sketch. I already have mine open here, and you can see there's a setup function with nothing there, and then also a loop function. And notice how there's two slashes. This means like it's a comment. The computer won't like recognize anything that you write past the two slashes. So like this is like you could write notes and stuff in your code. So the setup function, it's a function that only runs once when we upload the code to Arduino, which is used to like initialize variables, which I'll explain later. And the loop function, which is something that gets run repeatedly after you run the setup function, and is like the main part of your program. So some basic setup. In the setup function, you should write serial.begin and then 9600, and then go to the tools and open serial monitor. So if you go to tools, serial monitor, notice how it says like 9600. This is like the frequency, so the Arduino knows like where to like output some values. Now, don't forget to like save your code after you write something. So something in programming is called printing. It's where you could like display messages to the serial monitor. So after you've like established the connection to the serial monitor using the serial.begin, you could write serial.println, and then in parentheses your like message, and make sure you have double quotes. So like for example, I could do serial.println hello world, and then save the program. And then if you verify and upload, and then go to your serial monitor, you'll see that hello world gets outputted here. And notice how it's only once, and that's because the setup function only gets like called once. So you could experiment more and like print more stuff using the serial.println. So next thing is a variable. It's in order to make a variable, you have to have a name and a type. So a type, like an example of that is like an int, which stands for integer, which means like it's a number. And after the type, you need a name. So in this case, we'll name our variable x. And so this is an example of initializing a variable. So you do the type, so in this case int x, and then the name, so then x, and then you assign that to a value. So int x equals 0, and then the semicolon. Another way you could do that is by defining the variable as int x and then assigning it a value, but that doesn't really matter right now. So let's try like printing out about our variable. So outside of the setup function, write in x equals 0. And then in our loop function, we could serial.println x. Notice how there's no double quotes. That means that it'll print the actual value of x instead of x. Like for example, if I do serial.println x within quotes, it'll actually print x instead of 0. So I'll save and I'll run the code. Okay, so see how it x, like the value of x gets printed first and then x with 0x, 0x, and then this is getting run like many times because it's in the void loop function. So another thing with variables is that if you try and define it in in a function, like in this case, if you write int y equals 0 in the setup function, you can't access the value of that in the loop function. So I'll give an example of that. If I try and do int y equals 0 and then try and print y in the loop function, I get an error because the loop function doesn't recognize that y exists because it's in the setup function. But since you defined it in the setup function, you can serial.print it in the same function. So I'll make it like 1. So. And then I'll comment this out, which is another way to like test your code. So if I verify, I don't get an error. Clear it out. Yeah, so see how y gets printed because it's in the same function as where you declared it. So this is something. The error that I was getting is like when your variable is out of scope, which means like it's just not in the same function. But we can access x because it's outside of both functions, and this is like called a global variable. So another thing you could do with Arduino is like basic math. And this is like you could do like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So if you go to the setup function, you could try like print, say like 3 times 7, and also you could try like I don't know, like 4 plus 2. If you run this code, put it in output, you see that it actually does 3 times 7 equals 21, and then 4 times 2, or what was it? 4 plus 2, which is 6. You could also do math with the variables that you made. So like I could replace 4 with y here, and then I should be able to get y, which is equal to 1. So 1 plus 2, that should equal to 3. So when I verify and upload it, I actually do get y plus 2 equals to 3. Also, you could also try something with division, where if you have an odd number, let's say like 3 divided by 2, this is 1.5, but let's see what the computer thinks it is. You actually get 1. This is because the computer doesn't, like, it only recognizes integers, which are whole numbers, so it rounds the value of 1.5 down to 1. And you could also like do the same thing with variables. Once you create a variable, like say you want to change the value, it's really simple. All you have to do is just reassign it. So say initially you set the value of x equal to 5. You could in a following line, you could just say x equals to 7. You don't write int again because that would be like, because the computer already knows that x is an integer type. So we could try that with changing a variable and printing it. So let me like delete some of this code and try serial.print x, and then we could change the value for x equals like 10, and then serial x, and say x equals 10. Right. Now we just save. Yeah, you can see that it prints x as 0, and then 10, and then 20. There are other ways to like change the variable's value instead of just like reassigning it. You can, like, the plus equals means you add you add the value that you have on the right side to the variable on the left. So for example, say you set x equal to, like, say in this case x equals to 5, then you plus equals 3, so x plus 3 equals to 8, so it would print 8. And you can do this with other like mathematical operators, with like minus equals, times equals, and divide by equals. So we could try that out with like x divide equals, say, 10, and then serial.print x. Yeah, so and so x is equal to 20, then you divide it by 10, and that's equal to 2. There's another thing you could do where you do a variable name plus plus. So that means like if you have x as a value of like 4 here, and you do plus plus, it'll increase to 5. Plus plus is just like a short way of saying x equals x plus 1, which is like, it's just like easier to type, and same with minus minus. So like you could also try that out. So x plus plus serial.print. Yeah, so you had x equals to 2, x plus plus, now it's equal to 3. Yeah. Okay. Another thing are conditionals, which are either true or false. We use like comparison signs, like less than equals, greater than or equal to, and then equal to, and then not equal to. And if you like print these conditionals, you'll get either like true or false based on like the value. So like 4 less than 2, that's not true, so it prints 0, which means false. And here it's asking if 1 is equal to 5, and that's false, so it prints 0. Here it's asking if 3 is greater than or equal to 3, that's true because 3 equals 3, and so it prints 1. And it's asking if 2 is not equal to 3, which is true, so it prints 1. So we could try like conditionals. So serial.print println. Say 4 less than equal to 2. Oh, whoops. Let me do that again. Yeah, see how it prints 0, which is just false. This is like a more complex thing where you can combine conditionals. So using the double ampersand means and the like double bar means or. So we'll walk through this first one. So 2 equals 2, that's true. And then 4 is greater than or equal to 5, that's not true. So in order for and to be true, both of the sides need to be true. So in this case, this is true, this is false, so the entire thing is false. And this one, 2 equals 2, that's true. 5 greater than or equal to 5, that's true. So using and, since they're both true, the entire thing is true. And the or, that means only one of them has to be true. 3 is not equal to 3. That's false. Or 5 is less than 8. This is true. So since one of them is true, the entire thing is true. And in this case, 2 is less than 1, that's false. And 5 is equal to 3, that's also false. Since both are false, the entire thing is false. And you could do that with like other like values and stuff. Let's say like 3 not equal to 2, and 2 equal to, or 2 is greater than or equal to 2. Yeah, so since 3 is not equal to 2, that's true, and 2 is greater than or equal to 2, since they're both the same, the entire thing is true, since it's an and. Another thing that we're going to learn today are loops. Just like the void loop function, there's something called a while loop. It repeats whatever is inside of it a certain amount of times. So, for example, if you have while 2 is less than 5, while 2 is less than 5, and then like whatever your code, insert your code here. Since 2 will always be less than 5, this will run forever. And in this loop, while 3 is equal to 2, this will never be true. So whatever's inside this loop will be skipped. So let's try something else. So if I try a while 2 is greater than 1, and then you need to have a bracket, and it'll automatically like complete it. You say serial.print ln, say like hi. Since 2 is always greater than 1, it's running forever, just similar to the void loop function. Let's try this. So it's 2 is less than 1, and run the code. Let me clear that. It doesn't run what's in this function because that's never gonna be true. So far, all you could do with loops are either run them forever or run them never. So this is where counters come into play, where you can like run a loop specific number of times. First you have to like make a variable, and inside of the loop you should make the variable increase or decrease depending on the condition, and it'll run it a specific number of times. So I'll give an example. So we already have x equals 0 here, and let me just like delete like all these things and try this. While x is greater than, or while x is less than 3, we'll print hi. But inside of our loop, we'll increase the value of x by 1 every time we run it. So if you try this code out, it prints hi 3 times because the first time x equals to 0, so it prints it once. Then the second time x equals to 1, so it prints it the second time. And the third time x equals to 2, so it prints it another time. But if you try it, then you increase the value of x to 3, which means it doesn't meet this condition and then skips the code. So that's why it only prints it 3 times. And you can do this with a lot of things. It doesn't always have to be like less than, like before, if you say like x equals to 10 and then decrease it every time, you'll run it like I think 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, this gets run 7 times because it's initially 10, and then eventually goes down to 3. So notice how if we, or remember from before when we had the serial.print in our loop function. Let me put it in. No, not. Wait, did I? Okay, wait. Let me get rid of this stuff too. Yeah, see how like it prints 10 again and again and again without any like pausing. So this is where delay comes in. Delay is where you can add like a time, or it like stops the function for a certain amount of time before continuing. So this is, and like the number that you're writing is like in milliseconds, which is 1,000 milliseconds equals 1 second. So so if we go back to this loop and add a delay, let's say 1,000 milliseconds, so like 1 second, and now run our code. It'll print 10 every 1 second instead of just like spamming and printing it again and again and again without like any delay. This can also be used as shown here in your while loop, which I deleted, but hopefully you didn't delete that. And it's like really useful. So that was it for today. So you guys should, if there's any leftover time, just like just mess around with the stuff you learned today, and if not, just put away your Arduino, make sure to save your program and close the computer. And that's it. Thank you.